All right, good morning, everybody. We are here for the March 9th meeting of the Communications, Technology, and Innovation Committee. We have 3 bills on the docket today. Mr. Clerk, please open the roll. Members, signify your presence. And we have a quorum. And even more of a quorum, if you'll hold the...
I can go back.
Why not?
Thank you, Mr. Clerk.
Push that. All right, we have a quorum. All right, members, we have on the docket today 3 bills. And first up, we have Senate Bill 85. We're going to call first Senator Van Valkenburg. Senator Van Valkenburg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, there is a substitute.
I move the substitute. Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we have the substitute in front of us. All those in favor say aye. Aye. The substitute is properly before us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee.
Explain what we have.
Yeah, I'll briefly explain the bill, tell you what the substitute does, and then come back to the bill. This is a bill that basically does 2 things. One is it provides for portability of data for social media companies and AI, meaning you as a user are able to control your own data, right? Are able to download your own data. The second thing it does is offers interoperability, which means being able to basically take your data and kind of go from one place to another. A way of thinking about this, because interoperability is actually pretty common, a way of thinking about this is like a phone network will let you keep your phone number, right, if you transfer between. Email works across providers. Some platforms already do this, like if you think about cross-posting between Facebook and Instagram. This doesn't mandate interoperability, okay? It provides a platform for interoperability, and I'll come back to that. What the sub does is a couple things. One is it clarifies, and this had come up on the Senate side, it clarifies in the language that no platform is required to import data, right? So the interoperability is not a mandate. So in other words, Twitter or X or whatever we call it, right, doesn't have to take your data for interoperability, right? That's important. And the reason why you want interoperability is essentially competition, right? The small guy would be more inclined to take your data, right, to try to create a platform that can compete. The second thing it does, and this is a promise I made in the Senate, was tighten up the language around security and privacy protection requirements to just make that kind of more robust. And so we did that in line with the Consumer Data Protection Act to ensure that data is appropriately secured. It limits the scope to consumer platforms and the subset of AI systems that have the most significant amounts of data for users, and it delays the effective date a little bit longer to allow companies to do this. Now, portability and interoperability is already in the process of having to be done. Utah was the first state to pass this law. They passed it, I believe, 12 months ago. There are other states that are looking at this now. But I think the way you want to think about this, and then I'll stop because I know there are people that want to testify. I think the way you want to think about this is about one part of it's about ownership, you owning your data and having the ability to have control over that. And the second way to think about this is, I think, free markets. This is a way to help the small guy in the social media ecosystem and AI ecosystem have a chance, right? Because you can take, if I want to get off X and go to, I don't know, whatever, I don't want to get off of X and go to something else, but if I did, right, I could take my information, right, I could input it in there and I might be more likely to do that, and that helps the small guy possibly compete. And so I think it's a bill about your data, your ownership over your data, and I think it's a bill about free markets. And I'll just end by saying, and the place I got this bill from is our great senator from Virginia, Senator Mark Warner, who introduced this at the federal level in a bipartisan manner. This was a bipartisan bill that was put forward by Senator Warner and a couple others. It was reintroduced this year. It was first introduced, I believe, a couple years ago. Utah's doing it. There's some efforts at the federal level to do it, and I think it's good for us as people. And so I'll end there because I know there's people that want to testify or you might have questions.
All right, thank you so much, Senator. Members, are there any questions from our members? Comments? No questions? We do have one. Chair recognizes Delegate Washman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did have two questions of the patron. One was, what was the ultimate fate of Senator Warner's bill in Congress, as well as two, has Utah actually gotten to the implementation phase?
Yeah, good questions. Mr. Chair, Delegate, as with all things in DC, nothing happens. So they're at the talking stage. And then in terms of the Utah implementation stage, Utah has also delayed the implementation as a way to allow these companies, which I think is right, and that's why we've extended the delayed implementation as well, to allow them to have the time to catch up to be able to fully implement the law well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the patron.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Chair recognizes Delegate Keys-Gamarra.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question for the patron. As I look at this, I have a few questions. One is, what problem are we trying to solve? And secondly, whether this is something that JCOTS has examined, this particular issue, particularly for issues of inscription, authentication layers, etc. So yes, that's my question, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Chair and Delegate, I would say to JCOTS, no. Answer that question first. And then what problem are we solving? I would just go back to what I said before. I mean, I think ownership of data and people feeling comfort with ownership of data is important. I think it's important unto itself, but I also think it's important for the kind of broader ecosystem of our trust in all of these things, right? So I think it's philosophically important and practically important. And then I would also say, I personally think, I don't know if it's going to end up working, but I personally think we should be trying to create an ecosystem where as many companies as possible can compete. I think that's important, and I think it's important. I think it's important once again for the philosophical reason of trust, the ability for new companies to be able to innovate. I think it's also important for us as users, right? That we're not trapped in just a couple options, but that there is this possibility for other smaller entities to be able to eventually compete and to thrive, right? Will that happen? I'm not going to lie to you and say I know. I'm a little skeptical just because I know personally I don't want to be on the social media sites I'm on, let alone go to new ones. But I think it's worth trying because I think it's what else do we have?
Follow up, Mr. Chair. Does your bill have any provisions for misuse of data?
Well, we tied all the security measures in this substitute to the Consumer Protection Data Act, so yes.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Delegate Pence.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question for the patron. I guess I'll go ahead.
Delegate Pence.
Yeah. So I guess my concern is about, is there a certain format that the information has to be given to be provided in? And if so, does that put added cost on the different platforms? And, what's the concern over proprietary information? I guess that's the Consumer Protection Act as well. But
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I would, if I don't answer your question fully, just pop back to me because that's not intentional. I would start by going to the last section of the bill. So if you go to lines 268, right? And at 268 down, it kind of says, under this section, what they're not required to do. So you can see that kind of getting to the proprietary things are in line 269 to 271. Transmitting data that is stored or proprietary is 272 to 274. 275 is the line about you're not forced to accept imported data, right? You're not forced as a company to take interoperability from some other company, some other data. So that gets to the proprietary question. Is this going to cost social media companies money? Probably, but they're also the wealthiest countries in the history of mankind. So I think I tend to think they can figure these problems out and do them well. I don't tend to have a lot of angst about that. And I can't remember if I'm forgetting one of your questions. I apologize. Okay.
Thank you so much. Members, seeing no one else in the queue, are there any persons in the room wishing to speak in favor of the bill? Please state your name.
Matthew Lipka with Project Liberty. Thank you, Chair Hayes and members of the committee. I'm with Project Liberty, speaking in support of SB 85. Project Liberty builds open technology and advocates for policies that will build a better internet. Today, social media platforms built on commercializing our personal data don't allow individuals to control their own information, and this has also led to a lot of a feedback loop that ends up harming young people's mental health. And we believe these issues stem from a market failure, which is that you can't get your data out of the platform. And as a result, individuals or users end up being the customer. Our attention is the customer, so that we can get more cycles of looking at the sites to sell more ads. In fact, nearly half of Gen Z say that they wish platforms like TikTok and Snapchat were never invented, but they can't leave without their friends and content. One New Chicago study asked them how much they would need to be paid to delete TikTok. They said actually they would pay the researchers $30 each if it meant that their friends would leave too. We need to reshape social media so you can exit platforms that aren't serving you, and we need to get ahead of these problems in AI as well to ensure that it benefits people. SB 85 would make it easy for people to take their data to platforms that better serve their needs and delete their data from platforms that have lost their trust. It has three big benefits. First, it spurs innovation by letting users bring their social connections and AI history to emerging platforms. Second, it would require companies to compete on user experience, earning loyalty through better features and content quality. And third, it would enhance privacy protections by centering user consent and allowing individuals to leave platforms that have weak security. The technology to do this exists. For example, Project Liberty has developed a free open protocol for social networking, which is one of half a dozen competing open protocols now used by tens of millions of people worldwide. The bill doesn't pick any winners or losers here, but the technology is out there. It also requires, at the suggestion of technologists and industry, that companies' data security practices protect user confidentiality and integrity. All of the existing open protocol support encryption. This is the same encryption that allows the data to come from a social media company's servers to my cell phone over the internet. It's encrypted. That's how it requires them to have the same level of protection. Social media companies must already implement these features to comply with Utah and also South Dakota's now similar laws. And companies already actually have to let Virginians download a portion of this data under the existing privacy law. So it's only expanding a bit the scope of that data and building on that to allow comprehensive data transmission directly to platforms that users choose. I urge your support and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the bill? Anyone in the room would like to speak opposed to the bill?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Melissa Aslan with the 51 Group here on behalf of TechNet. We do appreciate the senator working on the bill. However, we do still have concerns. The bill, as the substitute in front of you, still does require entities to have these third-party platforms to allow for users to export the data. And we also believe that the bill, as drafted, has some unworkability for some of our members. And so we are opposed to the bill.
Thank you so much.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Eric Link on behalf of the Northern Virginia Technology Council. A couple of points to share with you. Data portability doesn't need to be this prescriptive. There's a lot of shalls in this bill that would be put upon the operators. Notwithstanding the testimony you previously heard this morning, we are unaware of an open protocol that would work at scale, that would facilitate the type of interoperability that's been discussed. The last thing I want to point out is this is drawn to the Consumer Data Protection Act. So if an operator violates this or is accused of violating it, they risk $7,500 per incident. When you start adding that up across multiple users, across multiple platforms, that certainly is a lot of money that's in the wind. But then perhaps of greatest importance is if you're going to have that amount of a fine being threatened, the definition of contextual data is quite broad. And if you're an operator and you're trying to comply with the definition as it's currently drafted, we're uncertain that that's feasible and to have your platform still be operational. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Any other speakers in opposition? Seeing none in the room. For or against, do we have anyone online? We do have someone online. And online we have Nathan Trail. Mr. Trail, are you in favor? Are you in favor or opposed?
Opposed.
Mr. Trail.
Thank you. Chair Hayes, members of the committee, thank you so much for having me here today. My name is Nathan Trail, and I'm the Vice President of State Government Affairs at the Information Technology Council, or ITI. ITI is a global trade association representing many of the world's leading technology companies, all of whom have a direct presence or operate here in the state. We appreciate the intent behind the bill. However, we are opposed as it is drafted. We believe the bill imposes interoperability mandates, which raise serious privacy and security concerns. Social, graph, and AI interaction data often includes information about third parties who never consent to having their data shared. Once that information leaves the original platform, companies cannot ensure equivalent protections or prevent misuse, and broad data sharing requirements could often weaken safeguards like encryption and access control. The bill often raises some serious constitutional and legal concerns by effectively dictating platforms' design through a single state law. It may trigger the Dormant Commerce Clause, which creates a conflict with federal law, increasing the likelihood of prolonged litigation. Also, the technical requirements are not workable as drafted. There is no widely adopted standard for transfers. For transferring complex database like social graphs or AI conversational histories at scale. And finally, several definitions are still overly broad and create compliance uncertainty, potentially capturing general purpose AI tools or business-to-business services not intended to be regulated. And again, for these reasons, we do respectfully urge the committee to oppose the bill. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Deb Schmiel. And I do believe this is a person that's in favor of the bill. Ms. Schmidt.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you, Chair Hayes and members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity to testify today in support of SB 85, the Virginia Digital Choice Act. I'm Deb Schmiel. I'm the founder and president of the Becca Schmiel Foundation, named for my sweet, funny, kind, forever 18-year-old daughter, Becca, who died in 2020. Before her death, Becca experienced multiple traumas facilitated by social media. These traumas led to her self-medicating, and social media made it dangerously easy for her to buy drugs any time of day, no matter where she was, almost as simple as ordering a pizza for delivery. One day, she was sold something laced with fentanyl, and she died. No parent should ever have to experience this kind of loss. I have spent the last 5 years fighting to protect other children from the harm my daughter experienced. I have collaborated with lawmakers at both the federal and state levels to pass laws safeguarding children online. However, I recognize that until the core incentives for social media platforms change, Cyberbullying, sextortion, drug sales, and other harms will persist in these environments. The platforms are aware of these issues, but they have no incentive to address them. SB 85 would provide that incentive. Today's dominant platforms do not have to earn our children's loyalty. They only have to make it difficult for them to leave. When a young person's entire social world, their friends, conversations, photos, memories are all locked inside a single platform, switching becomes almost impossible. The lock-in removes the competitive pressure that would otherwise push companies to provide a safer, healthier environment for our kids. SB 85 addresses this core problem by giving users the right to take their data, they should own their data, and their social connections with them to other platforms. The Digital Choice Act introduces real competition. If users can move more freely, platforms will have to compete not only for their attention, but also for their trust, safety, and well-being. Increased user mobility would motivate companies to respond more quickly and responsibly, because users can choose to leave if they don't. SB 85 also positions Virginia to address the next wave of technology. Artificial intelligence systems are already beginning to replicate the same dynamics we've seen with social media: closed systems, powerful engagement tools, and little accountability. Establishing
20 seconds,
choice
Ms. Schmiel. You have 20 seconds, Ms. Schmiel.
Okay, establishing digital choice and portability now will help ensure the future technologies develop a more competitive and user-centric way. Really, I think that's all I need to say. We need this for our children because online ecosystems where companies must compete, there should be online systems that serve young users, not exploit them. For these reasons, I respectfully urge the committee to support SB 85, the Virginia Digital Choice Act. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you. That concludes all of the testimony regarding the bill. I'll just start by saying that with the legislation that we have before us in these categories, as we mentioned during the first meeting that we had, there's a three-way test that we try to overlay and filter with these bills. One is whether or not there's a fiscal impact that's associated with the legislation and whether or not that funding is available to go along with the legislation. That's not an issue here. Then, of course, there is the question of whether or not it's in conflict with the Consumer Data Protection Act. And then the other hurdle that a bill needs to get through and over this session is whether or not it is on a watch list, if you will, because it threatens the Commonwealth's ability to receive its $800 million in BEAD funding. And unfortunately, this piece of legislation falls into that category. And so just like even my own legislation, I had to table that legislation. All of our pieces of legislation that come before us this session that's on that list, we have addressed in that same fashion. Members, questions? Seeing none, the committee operates by motion. Chair recognizes Delegate Shin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I would move that we gently lay this on the table with a request to you, our Uber chairman, for a letter to JCOTS to further examine, I think to your point, the body of this work.
Thank you so much. There's a motion on the floor properly. It's been moved and properly seconded that we gently lay this piece of legislation on the table with a letter to JCOTS. Clerk, please open the roll. Members, please cast your vote. And the vote is 17-3 that we gently lay this piece of legislation on the table.
Mr. Chairman of this committee.
Thank you so much, sir. Members, next we have up Senate Bill 141, sponsored by Senator Salim, and there is a substitute.
Mr. Chair, I move the substitute.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we have the substitute in front of us. All those in favor say aye. Aye. And the substitute is properly before us. Senator Salim.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the committee. I appreciate you all working with me on this regarding the substitute, and I can let counsel or somebody explain the substitute.
Absolutely. Thank you, Senator. Counsel, if you could report the substitute.
Yes, Mr. Chair. The substitute provides that in a civil action based on a claim of defamation that involves the broadcast or dissemination of allegedly defamatory media within 30 days of an election in which the plaintiff is a candidate for office, that plaintiff would be entitled to make a motion for injunctive relief to prohibit the further publication or dissemination of such media. And then it also specifies that when the court's making the determination on whether or not to grant that injunctive relief, the court will consider the public's interest in having a properly informed electorate. And it should be published on LIS.
Thank you so much. Senator Salim, did you want to say anything about the legislation?
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know this legislation started as trying to, tackle the rapid development of deep fakes that are taking place in our elections and essentially everywhere online. Since the introduction of this bill, I think we have all seen the number of AI-generated videos that have come out around elections, and including referendums that have started their voting right now. So I do appreciate the committee really looking into this on how do we move this issue forward rather than backward. So I want to say thank you to the chair and the delegates who brought the amendments forward. I would ask an additional thing if the chair could also write a letter to Jay Cotts taking a look into this so that we can continue this conversation as well.
Thank you so much for that advice. Members, questions of the patron? I just want to say, make a statement here starting out that at its core, the democracy that we have depends on an informed electorate. If the voters can't trust what they see and hear, then the entire decision-making process becomes compromised. For one, deep fakes and the other side of the coin, the liar's dividend, they erode trust. People won't know what's real or whether or not it will dismiss a valid information. By addressing this, we protect the foundation of honest debate and fair elections. Trustworthy information is what makes a democracy function. Obviously, AI-generated media is increasingly sophisticated and can undermine trust in elections and public discourse. The other thing to remember is that this substitute protects the candidates from defamatory media while preserving the public's right to truthful information in elections. Then, of course, the urgency of when these things happen are extremely important as well. Within a 30-day window, this would be against this piece of legislation if such an action takes place within 30 days of an election. And then, of course, the legal checks remain. Courts will carefully weigh the public interest, and that it doesn't stifle free speech. It targets verifiably defamatory content. It's also a situation where there's the other side, the liar's dividend, as mentioned before. This is a situation where if a piece of media is actually true in the way of a video or a picture, then of course one can't simply deny it and say that AI that has come forth. That's the other side of the coin, and that remains just as important as well. Most importantly, the substitute before us safeguards our democracy, as I've said several times. Of course, we're going to frame the bill as a tool to protect the integrity of elections, ensuring voters aren't manipulated by deliberate deepfakes, and certainly is more to be researched with this, and we'll continue to do that with that letter to JCOTS as well. Members, Chair recognizes Delegate Lopez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick comment.
Delegate Lopez.
I deeply appreciate the senators taking some of the new language and also his initiative and the months of work he's done on this and the research that he's done, and also his recognizing that we can do more research on this as well. But I really do appreciate his effort to get this passed and working with all of us on getting it done the correct way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other members, questions? Seeing no one in the queue, are there any persons in the room that would like to speak in favor of the bill? Are there any persons in the room that would like to speak against the bill? Please state your name.
Mr. Chairman, Benjamin Knotts with Americans for Prosperity. I do want to thank Senator Salim for making some of the amendments. If you want to take a note, HA 191 was an act that passed in Hawaii that was almost identical to the original language, and the Ninth Circuit Court threw that out because it was so unconstitutional. I think the move away from electioneering communication, specifically to abuses, is very smart. So this is a neutral position now. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman and members, Chris Kaiser with the ACLU of Virginia. I'm not here to oppose the substitute. I really haven't spent a lot of time with it. I do want to thank the committee for moving the amendment. I think that this is a significant improvement. Just wanted to say, as we continue to look at these issues going forward, one of the main issues with the introduced version was tethering this regulation of expression to this very, very expansive definition of electioneering communication, which goes beyond express advocacy for or against a candidate, which is what the election code currently regulates, and instead it would have covered any reference to a candidate, positive, negative, just informationally within that 30 days of an election day. So that in and of itself sort of sets this type of legislation on a path that is difficult to remain constitutional. So very, very glad that we moved away from that electioneering communication piece. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Sean Winneto speaking on behalf of the Humanization Project. We would associate our comments with those of the ACLU. We appreciate we're to a neutral position and appreciate the work that Senator Salim and the committee's done on this bill.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my name is Jod Coleman. I'm with the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression. We go by FIRE for short. We're a nonpartisan nonprofit that defends free speech rights of all Americans. While I'm not going to speak to the underlying, the amendment to this bill, we had constitutional concerns with the underlying bill language. No law can realistically prevent harmful political speech before it's published or spoken. That can be frustrating for those targeted by false or unfair claims, but nevertheless, it reflects a foundational principle of our constitutional system. Even when speech may ultimately be unprotected, the First Amendment sharply limits the government's ability to block political expression before it occurs. One last thing, AI is an expressive technology, and the people who use it retain their First Amendment rights. Just wanted to get that in. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Seeing no other members in the room to speak for or against, Chair recognizes Delegate Garrett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Speaking to the bill.
Delegate Garrett.
Mr. Chairman, I had a similar bill that was rolled into Delegate Cousins' bill, and I want to affiliate myself with the remarks of the ACLU, which is something I don't say that often. But here, this isn't that hard. I think we've really made this more complicated than it needs to be. For years, we have recognized time, place, and manner restrictions on speech, rightfully so. The proverbial example is you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. We also regulate the speech of certain individuals differently than we regulate the speech of other individuals. For example, someone might say horrific, hurtful, racially defamatory things, and that right is protected despite the fact that it's offensive. However, if a law enforcement officer says those things, we might fire them, and rightly so. So I think the essence of this, Mr. Chairman, is that we want to stop political campaigns from engaging in the deceptive practices utilizing AI against political campaigns. When the Ninth Circuit took to task the Hawaii law that we heard discussed, it was I believe, the Babylon Bee, who was clearly a parody and satire outlet, and that may, in fact, I know it was the Babylon Bee because my friends at the ACLU are nodding, and that may have come from the other side. It might have been The Onion, or it might have been some left-leaning organization, and that sort of parody and satire is a long-standing protected right of speech in a free society going back to Voltaire on a different continent. So we want to protect those rights, but when Garrett for Delegate says horrible things about Salim for Senate and uses AI to do so, we need to find a way to stop that. And I think that's a bipartisan thing that we can all agree on here. I do hope, because I think I know where this bill is going, that we will circle back, not to limit the right of a parody or satire or political commentator to say which they think might be persuasive, but definitively to limit the ability of a political party or candidate to speak falsely of their opposition. So I think this bill is going in the right direction. I'd like to get it fixed sooner because it's a real problem. But again, there's no effort here, I don't think. It certainly wasn't by myself or Delegate Cousins to stop parody and satire. It is to stop us from saying things that aren't true to influence the outcome of elections. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much. Seeing no one else in the queue, I'll just say that we appreciate the comments from all parties, all sides of the issue, but something has to be done. But we have to do it in a constitutional way. And a lot of times, a lot of the comments that I've heard today pretty much focuses on the underlying bill versus the substitute that we have before us. And so we have to keep that in mind, members. Chair recognizes Delegate Shin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, if appropriate, I have a motion for you. It would be a motion to report.
Delegate Shin.
With substitute. Thank you, Mr. Clerk.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we report the bill as a substitute. Clerk, please open the roll. And the substitute reports 14-6. Thank you so much, Senator Salim.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the members of the committee.
Members, the final bill that we have before us today is Senate Bill 141. Senator Reeves? Or did I? I'm sorry. Senate Bill 753.
Threw me off.
Senator Williams.
Threw me off there, Mr. Chairman. I'm like, what? Mr. Chairman, this bill's in the same form it was last year as Senate Bill 1421. And last year, as we went through Senate Courts Committee, it was the recommendation of the Senate Courts Committee to send it to Boyd Graves. And over the summer, Boyd Graves met in conference, the subcommittee, the whole thing. So the conference committee from Boyd Graves approved the bill. And I have copies of that for anyone who wants to see the email or the actual report from Boyd Graves. I have those as well, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, this bill is similar to Delegate Glass's bill, more in a simplified approach to the same issue. It would alter Code 8.01 TAC 40 to add voice and likeness. The goal is to offer protection for folks like recording artists, actors, and others whose voice and likeness is their livelihood. As technology we've heard today progresses, deepfake AI software becomes more publicly accessible. This is a measured way for the state to offer those protections for those individual artists that actually make a living off their good looks or their talent. Not create any criminal charges, but instead grant the right to maintain a suit in equity against any firm or individual who unlawfully uses your voice or likeness for commercial or advertising purposes to restrain their use and recover damages. Mr. Chairman, I would tell you that Delegate Glass's bill, HB 581, is on its third reading in the Senate for final passage, but it's been passed by twice by the majority leader, and I don't know why, but I'd like to punch her bill out of the Senate if we can get it done. So.
Thank you so much, Senator Reeves. Thank you for that information. And as you stated, House Bill 581 by Delegate Glass reported actually from the House, House Courts 22-0. And then, of course, passed the House 98-0. Just wanted to put that information in front of us as we deliberate that this is a similar bill. Questions from our members? Not seeing anybody in the queue. Is there anyone in the room who would like to speak in favor of the bill? Not seeing anyone. Anyone in the room like to speak opposed to the bill? Not seeing anyone. Anyone online? No. No one's online. With that, committee operates by motion.
Move to report.
It's been moved and probably seconded that we report this piece of legislation, Senate Bill 753. Please open the roll. Members, cast your vote. And with that, the bill reports 20-0. Thank you so much, Senator Reeves.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee.
Members, you'll have in front of you at your dais, I just wanted to say that you should save the date for a tech policy symposium. Of course, that will be June the 3rd at the College of William and Mary, and it's sponsored by the Joint Commission on Technology and Science. We wanted to make sure that you all knew about this policy symposium that will be happening on, again, June the 3rd. With that, we have exhausted our agenda here today, and therefore this committee shall rise.